Welcome to the start of the 2025 Lake Coast program season. Hard to believe that we're already here and lake hosting has already begun. So I'm really excited to work with you all this season and get this underway. My name is Hannah Coppola, so I'm new to the program and I'm joined by
Maria Arvidsson. I'm director of programs. You guys, most of you have met me before, and as some of you have started to come in, I'll be managing the comments and the questions in the chat, as well as making sure that everyone stays muted so that there's no echoing or confusion through the online video.
Great. So, a little bit about myself, very briefly, since I'm new to this program this season. I am coming from upstate New York, the Saratoga region, but originally from Maine, so originally a New Englander. But while I was in New York, I was overseeing a boat steward program, so really similar to the Lake Coast program. So, I'm hoping to come in with some good experience. I was a lake host myself at one point. So I kind of know what to expect in the position and hopefully can, provide any guidance needed during the season. And yeah, okay. So for our meeting, as we mentioned, it will be recorded. You will be muted for the duration of the webinar, and we ask that you keep your cameras off just for, bandwidth. So if you have any questions, make sure to type them into the chat, and we'll kind of answer them as we go or answer them in a Q&A session. Right. So if you have your Lake Host training manual with you, if you have a hard copy, then you can kind of flip through it as we go along. This training is centered around our training manual. So each year we make new copies of this manual, so make sure that you're kind of looking at the most up-to-date version. It does say 2025 on the cover. And all of the materials that you find in your manual can also be found online. So always refer to your manual if you have any questions. It's a really useful tool during the season. So for those of you who are lake hosting for the first time this season, first of all, welcome. It can be our first season together. Our motto is that we are the voice for all of New Hampshire's 1,000 lakes. So our mission is to restore and preserve the health of New Hampshire's lakes. And our organization, New Hampshire Lakes, does that in a few different ways. The way that we're participating is through the Lake Host program. But it's not just environmental. A healthy lake protects your quality of life, the tourism industry, and the local economy. And I know myself, I would love to be out tubing right now in the middle of a lake. So that's on my bucket list for this summer, for sure. You might see me float by your launch, just checking up on you. But with all of our beautiful lakes, they are still threatened by invasive species. There are a few different ways, as I'm sure that some of you already know, that invasive species are introduced into a water body. So, as you can read, boats, trailers, really any gear that has touched the water that hasn't been clean, drained, and dried properly can pose a risk of bringing these species to that person's next body of water that they're going to. So, for example, even a droplet of water could have, different snail or zebra or mussel larvae. I say zebra because I think of zebra mussel. Um, and I also think of milfoil. Variable water milfoil is a huge problem in New Hampshire. And just one little leaf from that plant introduced into a new water body could potentially introduce a whole new infestation. So that's why lake coasts are so important, and the work that you're doing really makes a difference for the health of our lakes. Thinking about safety in aquatic invasive species, mussels, like you see in this photo, they can cut swimmers' feet or people who are walking on the beach for really dense stands of milfoil in the water. If kids or yourself are jumping into the water and get tangled up, that also poses a safety risk. Uh, a little bit unrelated, but when I was working in New York, we were helping to manage a aquatic invasive species called water chestnut, and hundreds of acres in one section would just be dense mats of floating vegetation, which really makes recreation for boaters, anglers, swimmers unsafe and unpleasant. So preventing new introductions of invasive species uh, can really help with that.
Hannah, it looks like you were uh, muted. I accidentally muted you. Could you unmute yourself? Can everyone hear Hannah?
Well,
There we go. We
we
can hear you
okay.
now.
A little bit
All right,
louder, the
good.
loudest you can get it.
Okay, so the positions that you have are the first line of defense in preventing invasive species introductions. Um, you know, this program has been a program for 23 years now. Well, since 2002, so a very, very long time. During that time frame, lake hosts have prevented the spread and introduction of 1,672 invasive species, which is an astonishing number. During this presentation, we'll be reviewing different things to look out for while you're conducting the inspection, how to conduct an inspection, kind of step by step in a flow chart, and also the successes that the Lake Coast program has had over these past 23 years. So in addition to working with all of the great partner groups this season and in past seasons, we've also had all of the total saves, and the number of voluntary voter inspections is astonishing. 1,625,405 complimentary voter inspections. Um, so this, is contributing to the total saves of aquatic invasive species, but also all of those people who are becoming educated of clean drain dry practices. So it makes a difference not only for our program and the numbers that we're seeing, but beyond to our neighboring states and our neighboring water bodies within New Hampshire. So this infographic is available in your Lake Coast Training Manual. If anyone's asking you questions during the season about the accomplishments of our program, you can always refer back to this and kind of get some quick numbers, as well as all of the species that we've saved and how many. Fanwort is the beast on this one. That's a high number. So thinking about lake host onboarding, um, it's kind of assumed that if you are joining this training, that you are already, hired, you've signed your hire letter. You may have already started or you're working today or this upcoming weekend. Um, and if you have any questions about the onboarding step-by-step process, then we do have guidance linked on our New Hampshire Lakes website under Lake Coast Resources. So one of the most tricky parts of getting hired is completing the federal I-9 form. Um, so if you're a returning Lake Host, there is a chance that you may not need to complete this. Us at New Hampshire Lakes will determine this. Your coordinator can no longer complete your I-9 form for you or with you. And mailed or emailed I-9s will not be accepted by New Hampshire Lakes. So what you'll do to complete your federal I-9 form is log on to your iSolved account and fill out section 1, upload identifying documents, and we'll take it from there and let you know if we have any questions. Before that, though, you really need your hire letter signed. So one of the first pieces of information that you'll receive from us for your onboarding steps is your hire letter. Um, your coordinator will submit you for hire and enter all of the information for you, including your contact information, start date, hourly wage, and we use all of that information to develop your hire letter. So we do send those over email, as hopefully all of you have found. Um, and getting that to us as soon as possible really helps us to move your hire forward, and get you lake hosting on time by your start date. If you are working at a ramp unhired, it is in violation of labor laws and puts the entire Lake Host program at risk. So don't do that. And if you are working at multiple ramps during the season, you need multiple hire letters. So, yeah, your two coordinators would kind of work together to figure out a schedule for you. But the combined hours between your two sites cannot exceed 40 hours a week. So you can't work, 40 hours at both sites. It needs to be a combination of 40 hours total, just to make that as clear as possible. And getting paid as a lake host. Before I start though, Bria, do you have any questions that have come through?
No questions so far. There's been some sound here and there, and it sounds like people are figuring out their audio. But no big questions so far about onboarding.
Great. So everybody wants to get paid. So let's review what will be the steps for that to happen. So every Monday and Friday, you will receive an email titled Submit Your Lake Hours, your Lake Host Hours here. This is generally what the email will look like. It will have your name, the abbreviation of your work site, and two hyperlinks. So the first, if you need to submit hours for time worked, you want to click time entry. If you've already entered them and you just want to review, then you click on current timesheet. Okay. So if you're submitting hours for the pay period, you will need to fill out the Lake Host time entry form. So first, you're going to want to just go through these basic steps. It's a little bit self-explanatory, but you're going to want to add your name. It should be a drop down, I believe. Make sure that you're selecting yourself. You don't want someone else to get paid for the hours that you have worked. We really don't see this issue come up, but we will contact you if that happens. Um, if you are not claiming any hours worked for that entire pay period, then you're going to want to go ahead and click on that checkbox, no hours claimed. And then it's straightforward from here. So your start timestamp and your stop timestamp, it gives you a little calendar icon to click on, so you can make sure that you get the right day selected and date. And then also the time. So that's on the right-hand side of that calendar icon. And you'll enter the hours that you've worked. Remember that you have the 2-hour rule. So within one day of work, you have to work at least 2 hours. So if you show up to your site and it turns out to be a giant hailstorm and your coordinator says, go home, it's not safe to work. Even if you've only been there an hour, you need to submit for 2 hours worked. And Bria, do you have any kind of clarifications or does that sound?
Yeah, I would say to clarify, it's only an hour for the entire day. So say if your shift is for the entire day, which like really great for you if that's the case. And you work for an hour in the morning, you had to leave because the weather was bad, and you come back a couple hours later to finish your shift. That and it goes over those 2 hours. That's great. That's fine. You can still put in a time entry for 1 hour and then another time entry for another couple of hours in that same day. We're talking specifically about if you only do less than 2 hours within a single day.
Yes, yeah. Thank you. Um, and also to the point of, this form and the hours submitted, you will need to submit a timesheet for each day worked. So this timesheet isn't, the entire week's worth of work. You need to submit this for every single day. And you'll also want to select your position. So either a lake host manager or a lake host inspector. And then you can't see it here, but scrolling down, you also have the name of your local group that you'll select, and that helps us kind of cross-reference as well. Did the lake host who submitted hours, that name that you entered, match up with the name of the local group? Okay. If you find that you have not submitted your hours, you will get a reminder email. So if you need to submit, if you still need to submit time for hours worked, then just make sure to still click on that time entry or to review that current timesheet. Okay.
I would say before we leave that email, everyone receives an email on the Friday before the close of the pay period, and then they also receive another email on that Monday of the pay period to remind you to send in your timesheet.
Okay, so when you click to review your current timesheet, it will take you to a view that looks like this. So you're going to see all of the time entries that you've submitted for the pay period, and you can view the status, the date, the time, the hours that you've claimed, and all other details kind of regarding your submitted time entries. Um, and you'll notice under the status, so the second column in from the left, that there's two kind of buttons that say approved and then pending review and rejected. So these are all of the options that you would be able to see for the status of your timesheet. Um, if your coordinator has approved your time, of course, it will say approved if they haven't reviewed it yet. Pending review. Rejected is where you will need to go back in and review your timesheet again and fix any issues that may be in there. Um, so yeah, rejected, you're going to want to go in and edit and then resubmit to your coordinator. And if you have zero submitted time entries for the pay period, you will receive an email with links to the no time form and your current timesheet. So this email will be sent to your inbox on the Sunday before the end of payroll Monday. And if you claim 0 hours for the entire pay period, you're going to want to go ahead and click 0 hours worked to be redirected to the no time form. Otherwise, submit your hours by clicking time entry in the email and yeah, claiming 0 hours. And this is kind of what that page will look like. Also very straightforward. Enter your name, the pay period, and then just confirming on our end that you're claiming those 0 hours. And back to editing your timesheet if it was rejected. This is what your email will show. So kind of staying up to date with your email throughout the entire season is really important. It will give you a link to make those corrections. Your coordinator can also enter in a little note about why your timesheet was rejected, so keep an eye out for that. In this case, only 6 hours were worked, 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., and perhaps this person was supposed to work an 8-hour workday and kind of missed those last 2 hours. So what you will see when you go back in to edit your time entry, um, you will see, your start timestamp, make the edits there. Usually it's the time of day that you began and ended your shift that you're going to want to edit. So, yeah, that's really the section that you'll need to update your timesheet for. And after submitting your edits, your supervisor will receive an email notification that your time entry awaits re-review. So there's, no worry about them getting that notification. And for some programs, it's a volunteer only program. So it's a little bit easier as far as payroll goes because there isn't any, of course. But they do need to track their volunteer timesheets. And this is really important because for volunteer hours worked, that contributes to the volunteer match for payroll awards for your group next season. Um, so if you're volunteering, you want to keep track of all of your hours worked, the mileage that you put on your vehicle, and any out-of-pocket expenses. So for example, if waters were bought for lake hosts and distributed, then that would be an out-of-pocket expense. And in that form, it looks like here we have Three Ponds volunteer match. That's our example. You want to enter your name, the date. The activity does have a drop-down menu. Um, the expense type, amount, and the hours. And any notes that you have are also really helpful in keeping track of this throughout the season and not doing it in a mad dash at the end of the season really makes it a little bit more accurate. So some other examples of volunteer match includes so that mileage driving to the ramp, to the post office, you know, the out-of-pocket expenses that are big and small. So porta potty rentals, lockbox purchases, Staples pens, sunscreen for lake hosts. It all counts towards your volunteer match.
I would add before we move away from volunteer match that there are some groups that the coordinator will manage that volunteer tracking sheet. So unlike these timesheets that the paid lake hosts are filling out and they're individualized, the volunteer match tracking sheet is a single tracking sheet that the entire program uses towards their match for the program. So a coordinator definitely work with your coordinator if you're a volunteer and see how they want to manage that volunteer time tracking. If they want you to enter in that time specifically for your time, or if they want you to coordinate with them so that they can enter in that time in a specific way.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you. Um, so this next section that we're going into talks a little bit more about what entails the lake host position. But before we move on, are there any questions on timesheets?
The only question that we had come through was if volunteer lake hosts have their own timesheet, and you answered that.
Okay. All right. Awesome. We're off to a good start. So, as a lake host, your main duty is to provide complimentary boater inspections, which you examine the boat for any plants, animals, debris, 360 degrees. So, every nook and cranny of the boat, the trailer, or equipment that comes into contact with the water. It's important to note that this is 100% voluntary. If the boater declines the complimentary inspection, then they don't need to take one. But I would say about 98% of people, maybe 95, always agree to the inspection. We're all kind of here for the same goal of keeping our lakes healthy and pristine as we can. Um, and if you find anything suspicious during your complimentary inspection, you will want to take a photo of that on our photo submission form, which is one of your laminated sheets, and submit that to New Hampshire Lakes. And yeah, overall, you're really engaging with boaters in a friendly and educational way about aquatic invasive species and clean drain dry practices. So, being prepared for work as a lake host, I know a lot of you, this is, your fifth, sixth, seventh year being a lake host, but for those of you who are new, be prepared for limited cell phone service, extreme temperatures, weather, seating arrangements, and kind of thinking if you should bring a camp chair or not, and downtime entertainment. So, as a lake host and kind of a face of New Hampshire Lakes and for your program, we'd prefer for you to not be looking at your phone and playing Candy Crush all day. Even though I am on level like 1000 of Candy Crush, I get it. Um, so, bringing knitting, bringing a book, those are really great alternatives to looking at a screen. And, in addition to that, some items that you might want to bring with you include lunch, a lot of water, especially in the dead of summer, bug spray, layers, sunscreen. A sun umbrella can also be really nice and, just give you that overall protection if there aren't trees. When I was a lake host, I used a golf umbrella, which is humongous. You can fit about 7 people underneath it, and it not only benefited the sun, but also the rainy days. Okay, so the required uniform, it really entails the Lake Coast blue t-shirt. So if you don't have one already, then your coordinator will be swinging by our office, or someone designated by your coordinator to grab you a t-shirt. You do need to wear this at all times while on duty. We also have optional hats. And so if you're wearing a sweater or a jacket, if it's rainy, then having the hat can kind of still help to identify you if your t-shirt is covered up. Um, we also have other options if you like a different style. They are kind of self-service, so you would log on to our webpage and purchase those yourselves, which does count towards your volunteer match, correct? Um, and so some of those items include tank tops, long sleeve shirts, and sweatshirts. And so, yeah, I would reach out to your coordinator to see if this is something that they can help you with in ordering, if that's something that you're interested. And the different blue and branded tops are considered a part of our mandatory uniform. And yeah, make sure to grab a hat as well if you haven't gotten one in past years. So is your lake on the infested list? If you have any questions, if it is, check out your Lake Coast training manual. Off the top of my head, I want to say it's somewhere before page 5 that we have a map of all of the infested water bodies in New Hampshire, as well as a list on the following pages of all of those lakes and kind of what they're infested with. So yeah, check that out. Be aware. That can also help you to understand what to look for while you're conducting inspections. And if you hear that someone came from so and so lake and you've kind of logged that species in your brain of what could be in that lake, then that can help you with what to look for as well. One of the species that we are hoping to do more with, as we were last year, is to save lakes from spiny water flea. Some of the materials that you're getting this season still include the spiny water flea handouts. So do your best to hand those out to boaters who haven't heard of spiny water flea before. Um, on that handout, it has all of this information as well on the precautions that you can take against spiny water flea. They're a really big problem for anglers. Fish don't want to eat them. They affect the entire water body's kind of ecosystem as a whole, starting from the bottom. And so essentially what you're going to want to do is make sure that boats are cleaned with high pressure water to remove spiny water flea, make sure it's hot water, and all of the gear and equipment that have come into contact with the water as well will want to be soaked for at least 2 minutes in 140-degree Fahrenheit water. Um, if they're not able to do this, again, it's voluntary, but these are the precautions that are recommended. So, what are New Hampshire's aquatic invasive species laws? This might be a good time to kind of ask all of you what laws you think there are regarding aquatic invasive species. So, if you have an idea, go ahead and drop it in the chat. I'll give you a few seconds here. Any responses so far? No? Oh, guys, come on. We know this. So it relates to our clean, drain, dry practices.
As we said it, yep, clean. Kevin Dowie just said clean. Stephen McGrath just said clean and drained. Meredith Brown
Awesome.
also just said clean. Yep.
Awesome. Okay. Um, yes. So cleaning off all mud, plants, animals, and debris from their boat, trailer, and equipment. Boaters must drain motors. Boaters must drain motors, bilges, live wells, ballast tanks, and storage compartments, as well as gear. They must open and remove all drain plugs and drain compartments and gear. And that they want to do that where the runoff won't re-enter into the water body. Um, and they want to use available tools at access sites on boats, trailers, and gear to prevent the spread of invasive species. So yes, we're all a little bit more familiar with the aquatic invasive species laws because we're kind of working with them and spreading the clean, drain, dry practices. But for people who this is their first season boating, or they've never heard of aquatic invasive species in the state that they're traveling from, this is really where lake hosts can make a big difference and pay it forward to future lakes uh, to prevent the spread of AIS. Okay. So, our inclement weather policy and payroll. So we had touched on this a little bit previously. Um, this is not so much timesheets, but more so, you know, what the safety is for your position, incident and injury reporting, and items like that. So we do have an inclement weather policy, and this is actually a law that it's good for you to be aware of if not already. So you don't want to be at your ramp during hazardous weather conditions such as this with major flooding. If you ever do report to work and get rained out anytime within those first 2 hours, you must be paid for working 2 hours for reporting to work. And as Bria had mentioned before, um, that's only for the entire day. So if you are not returning to work later in the day to work. So this doesn't mean that you need to stay at the ramp, but when you're reporting to a work site, there's a legal obligation to pay people the minimum of 2 hours for their time. And your local coordinator will likely reach out to you the evening before if there's going to be poor weather conditions. So hopefully this isn't a concern during the season. Those giant hailstorms in the middle of summer that we have to worry about. Okay, and weather ties into safety. So if it is extreme thunder and lightning and you're out there with a giant 7-person umbrella, you may want to go into your car and kind of call it a day, talk with your coordinator, because I doubt that any boaters would be going out anyways. But also related to safety. The majority of people are really receptive to the Lake Coast kind of program and the clean, drain, dry messaging that we're pushing out. But if you do find that someone is angry, then, kind of de-escalate, walk away. We're not saying that you have to try and interact with this person. We prefer for you not to, especially if they're under the influence of substances. And that kind of goes the same. If someone's yelling or threatening you, then go ahead, leave the launch. We will totally understand. And you're also going to want to contact your coordinator to let them know, or New Hampshire Lakes if you need support. We're definitely here for you. And your coordinator should provide you with this card. So each lake host gets one during the season. So I'd suggest taking a photo of it in case you lose it. This is really to be used for emergency situations. So if you have an incident or an injury during the season, fill out this card and contact your local coordinator within the first 24 hours or as soon as possible. I'm seeing that the chat has 25 notifications. Do we have any questions regarding safety at all, or are we looking good? All right, awesome. Okay. So, our behavior expectations. First of all, always show off your Lake Coast shirt. That's number one. Um, But also, with that, the position, as mentioned before, does have a lot of downtime. And it can feel like you have a lot of solitude when you're at work. But you are still in the public eye. There are still, people driving by your lunch. They're seeing you in your Lake Coast t-shirt. So try to be kind of on your best behavior, looking professional throughout the season. Um, your local coordinators, as well as New Hampshire Lake staff, will be dropping in throughout the season. So, that's to make sure that you have everything that you need, as well as make sure that everyone's wearing their uniforms and meeting those behavioral expectations. And yeah, uh, I guess one of the notes that I have is make sure that you're not napping as well. I know that it can be really serene at the lake and it can be tempting, but quietly playing a podcast can help with that. So some of the things that lake hosts don't do are enforce boating laws. You can only make the boater aware, and it's kind of their decision if they're going to break that law or not. Enforce local ordinances. You're not supposed to report boaters who refuse an inspection. They may have kind of their own reasons for that, and they may have clean, drained, and dried and just not disclosed it. There's no way that we can really know. You also don't want to tell visitors where to park, help launch boats, never enter a boater's vehicle or boat. You're only supposed to walk on the outside of their vehicle and boat, or impede fish and game or correction officers. Okay. So you will meet people from a variety of backgrounds during your work as a lake host. So being professional really means showing everyone the same level of respect, even if someone arrives to launch their boat in a cranky mood. We all have our days and so you really want to show kindness and patience, find the common ground that you're all here because you want to protect the lake and enjoy the water. Um, and, you know, it kind of ties into it that you don't want to hold anyone to a higher or lower standard, including professionals that may visit your launch. So, you know, not holding Marine Patrol, Fish and Game, DES staff, or New Hampshire Lake staff to a higher or lower standard. Um, And yeah, everyone across the board should just be treated the same, professionalism wise. Things that we love. Turning in your paperwork and reporting hours on time. Um, yeah, we love that. Collecting high quality survey data for your local group. This again really ties back to the payroll award applications that are granted to groups the following season. So, um, yeah, collecting that high quality data is really important. Whoops. And submitting your voter surveys. So if you're using a app on your phone to collect data, making sure in that outbox section that you're sending those in at the end of the day once you're connected to Wi-Fi. If you're using paper surveys, making sure that those are submitted to your coordinator or sent through the mail, or sorry, or uploaded to the Google Sheet. And be inspired. You're doing great work. Okay, so our next section is how to conduct an inspection. And if you're looking at this bird and trying to guess, it is a mute swan and it is invasive. So if you see any of these, you can kind of ID it. So, what I was really hoping to do this season for your training is lay out a little bit more the step-by-step process of conducting an inspection. And so, we'll kind of go through each step more in detail, and then at the end, there'll be a little bit more of a flow chart of the steps that you'll take. Um, so, first, you're going to want to introduce yourself and get permission from the boater to perform an inspection. Um, and this is for departing and arriving boats because there's always that educational opportunity. You might have missed them when they were going into the water. Even if it's someone running or walking by, feel free to greet them, tell them why you're there, offer information on the program because they really might not know about aquatic invasive species. Uh, and yeah, when you're approaching a boater, I would say one of the most important things right off the bat is to approach with positivity, and introducing yourself to let them know that you're a lake host. Ask if you can inspect their boats. Many boaters have interacted with lake hosts before, so they'll know the drill, they'll know the questions that are going to be asked, and they may even answer them before you can get the question out. And I guess when you're introducing yourself, for me, I would just say, hi, my name is Hannah. I'm a lake host with New Hampshire Lakes and your group name. And I'm here to do a complimentary inspection of boats for invasive species to help protect our lakes. And so you can just kind of keep it short, simple, and sweet, and develop that kind of script during the season. Okay. And approaching everyone with that positivity is really important. Um, in your manual, there is a boater survey quick reference guide, and this will help you to understand, you know, sample language of what to say to boaters, answer sample questions that boaters may have for you or common questions. And it also includes some tips for success. So it's a great reference to kind of review. And when you're in doubt, um, ask the voter for information that you're not sure about to answer the survey that you have in front of you. So one of those instances would be if you can't tell that a boat has a ballast, just ask the boater. They're going to be willing to tell you. And yeah, they're for the most part very, very friendly and willing. So for our um, online survey. I know that this can be a little bit intimidating of an application. I'm hoping to, work with you if you have any questions about it during the season to test it out this season. Um, and I guess, for the survey, It does work in remote areas with no cell phone reception. So you would save those surveys into what's called the outbox. Then I'll show you where that is in a little bit to be sent later on while you're connected to the Wi-Fi. And the survey works really well for us because it collects that clean data for research. It also helps us make summary charts of inspections by, the specific lake host or the lake host group. It helps us to create our final activity reports for each group at the end of the season. Um, as I've mentioned a few times during our training here, inspections do determine your or your group's payroll award for the next season. So getting those inspections submitted is very important for your group. Okay. So for both the paper survey and the Survey 123 application, there are some observational questions to answer. So some of those are the time of inspection. So, obviously it gives you a time range that you can enter that answer into. Whether the boat is arriving or departing, if they're a non-motorized or motorized watercraft, so kayak versus, an Evinrude, the state of registration. So that is for motorized boats only. Um, and that is written on the side of the boat, near the front, and it's the first two letters that you'll see, on the number. So this is a sample of the questions to ask the boater. On the paper boater sheet, there is a difference between the paper survey and the electronic survey by one question. The paper survey does not include the question of what their primary activity is at the launch. Um, it's difficult to include too much text on this paper form, so that was excluded, but we're still collecting great information, and that question is optional to answer on the electronic survey. So even then, it's just kind of a test season to see how boaters are using lakes and how that can tie into what invasive species might be found in relation to that. So if you have a lot of anglers, maybe spiny water flea is more of a risk. And the basic questions that are still the same from year to year, launching or leaving, their type of boat, did they clean, drain, and dry? If they didn't, you don't need to write in no. You can just, leave it blank. And one of the newer questions is the commitment question. And this is the question that's all the way to the right on this form. And it asks, will the boater clean, drain, and dry even when a lake host isn't present? It seems like a mouthful and maybe a little bit silly to ask, but there is a hidden reason behind it. It can gauge the kind of commitment that a boater is willing to take to have behavioral changes towards aquatic invasive species for their motorized or non-motorized boats. Um, Inviting the boater in at the beginning of your survey and asking them to join you to look for invasive species can also contribute to that kind of behavioral change that's really positive. Um, and kind of puts it in their heads, that this is an issue that they can take action with. Oops. There we go. Okay, and then of course, if they have any questions about, what's clean, drain, dry? I've never heard of the Lake Coast program before. You can give them the very basic lowdown of cleaning off all plants and animals, draining all standing water in your boat, pulling all drain plugs, and allowing it to dry for 5 days in the sun. Bake off all of those snail larvae. And you can't always see the ballast. So again, just asking the boater, um, it's not always an observational answer to that question. And depending on the type of boat that you're inspecting, there can be different areas that you're looking for invasive species. On the top photo, I'm seeing fabric on that trailer. So that could be at risk for, catching a few more plant fragments or snail larvae. So running your hand against that, seeing if it's really, really bumpy, could be one indication that there's larvae there. And they'd want to either use, hot water, hot pressurized water to clean that off. Let it bake in the sun for 5 days. Those are a couple easier ways to clean their trailer. They're also going to want to check wheel wells. So what that lake host is doing in the top photo. Be careful if you're doing this because sometimes it can be rusty and you don't want to cut your hand. Um, and yeah, continuing to walk around the boat, really inspecting the motor. This is a hot spot for invasive species. If a boater has traveled through a dense mat of, variable water milfoil, that can get tangled up around their motor, and they can carry that out with them onto the launch. And I'll include that sometimes you see piles of invasive species right on the ramp from boaters who are pulling off plants. So, kind of moving those to the side as you're removing plants can also help to prevent that very easy spread. Uh, and then paddle boards and kayaks. These admittedly do catch a little bit less invasive species on them. But if a paddleboard has a rope on the front that they're using to tie off on places, or around the paddle, variable milfoil can get caught up around it. So still doing a thorough check is definitely worth the time. And I also find kayakers love to pull um, oh, uh, what are those flowers? I'm drawing a blank. White water lilies. Yes. And so, yeah, making sure that all boaters haven't pulled any invasive plants or native plants, such as our white water lilies, and bringing them with them to plant in different areas is important. If you do find an invasive species, here's what you do. So you will have a laminated version of this form. You're going to first enter your group name, your water body, any comments that you have. In this case, they had mentioned that it was a departing trailer, um, your name, and the date. And try and lay out the species on the paper so that all of the leaves are kind of fanned out. We are using this to identify the plant, and it's really helpful if it's very, very clear photo. Okay. And lastly, the materials that you can hand out to boaters during your inspection. So we have three this season. The first is our Clean Drain Dry sticker. Next, we have a trifold. So that's our basic, Lake Coast program information. It also has links to, our program and where boaters can learn a little bit more. And then our spiny water flea handout as well. And targeting those anglers who are coming to the lake to fish. These are great people to hand these out to. And you can see, I hope it's big enough on all of your screens. One of the photos halfway down on the spiny water flea handout, you can see how they gum up on a fishing line and the impact that they have in a water body. Okay, this looks like a heavy slide, but this is an overall of conducting an inspection as a lake host. So if you're, new to the program and you're nervous at all about what to say to boaters, how to, you know, match the flow of the inspection, then you can take a screenshot of this. It will also be available later on when the recording's posted to our webpage. Overall, introducing yourself and the program that you're working with, conducting the inspection, offering the boater program materials, saving your survey. If you're using the app, then saving that in your outbox. If you're using paper, then you already have that written down. And then contacting your coordinator if needed. So if there are any safety concerns or emergencies, then contacting your coordinator or New Hampshire Lakes. And always reminding boaters to clean, drain, and dry to protect their favorite resources.
We had a question come in that I'd like to, it was directly to me instead of to the whole group. So I was hoping to, I'm going to do that now before we move into data entry. Is that good with you? So this person, it was more of a comment rather than a question, I guess. But if a person shows up and they're expecting to put the boat in, telling them to leave their boat out for 5 days really isn't an option. And that's absolutely true. Some people are going to be like, they're going to look at you cross-eyed if they're like, wait, what? I can't boat for 5 days. So a great recommendation is still letting them know, like, this is a recommended practice. Really, you should consider keeping your boat out for 5 days or drying it for 5 days before going to another water body. But something else that they can do is maybe this person or this boater has a paddleboard. It's got kind of gummed up with some stuff on it and not really sure what it is. Maybe there's a car wash right down the road, or it's a quick Google search too if there's another car wash maybe in the next town over. Oftentimes car washes have handheld sprayers or an ability to rinse something off, and that's a great place to send them to. And that was the question.
Sure, that's a good comment. Okay. So our voter data submission. Um, so for each group, data must be entered digitally, and there is an app for that that we'll review at the tail end of this training. You can even skip the paper sheets entirely and use the field app for quick and easy data entry directly in the field while you're out there. So I guess overall, we collect the data digitally because at the end of the season, we do have tens of thousands of data points in the form of voter inspections to assess. And so it really helps with our kind of quickness to turn around those final activity reports to the groups that you're working with, um, and really understand and interpret that data. And so for pre-approved groups who are not able to utilize the app, there are paper voter survey sheets that can be collected each pay period to be submitted digitally by a team member. Um, Usually for each group who are using the paper survey sheets, I believe that there's kind of a designated person who helps to upload those into digital format. So, entering data directly into the app on a mobile device in the field is suitable for slow to busy ramps with tech-savvy teams. Um, so, using the paper survey sheets in real time and then kind of transcribing the survey information into the app um, on a mobile device during downtime at the ramp can be a good way to kind of use up that downtime. Um, and and yeah, so using the paper survey sheets in real time and having that person also being able to take those paper survey sheets home and enter them directly through a desktop browser at a later time can be beneficial as well. That's really suitable for most ramps and teams with limited comfort with technology, but at least one tech savvy kind of employee or volunteer that's willing to do that. Um, this can be done through the browser version or the Field app, or through a protected Google spreadsheet that's kind of in limited use. So this is our case-by-case spreadsheet. So for some groups who are entering that data digitally, this is in general what the spreadsheet will look like. This is all entered, manually, so it does take a little bit of time. If you're the individual filling out the sheet, uh, there is a large amount of data and the sheet may buffer. So please always wait for it to finish loading. Check that your information has been saved for the day before recycling your paper sheets. I would suggest kind of holding on to those anyways until the end of the season. Um, the gray rows that you see on this Google spreadsheet do automatically populate information for us and don't need to be filled out. So don't start with the gray boxes or the gray cells and get frustrated because they'll automatically populate. I love this photo. Um, so you always want to select from the drop-down menu where the arrows signify options on that Google spreadsheet. Um, don't try and type in your kind of own access site name. We have a special kind of abbreviation that has been created for you, for example. So if you do fill out information without using those drop downs, it should alert you in red that that is not a viable option. Okay. How are we looking in the chat? Are we good? Okay, awesome. So we are making good progress on this training. One of our last sections is the Lake Host Field app. And I encourage you, even if you're not using it this season and you're using the paper boater sheets, to still test it out, even in your downtime at the ramp, and just kind of see the other option to uploading data and kind of what other groups are doing as well. So as a recap, why we're using the Boater Survey Field app at all. So it does work offline without cell phone service, so it's kind of beneficial in that way to upload them later. It makes it easy because it creates this dashboard for you so you can track your group's in-season progress. Although I think coordinators are probably looking at that function the most. And it's cost effective. So it is a free application that you're able to download onto your phone. No cost at all. And, you know, I think that the voter survey app is great because it kind of takes the burden off of a single person needing to upload all of the surveys for those really busy sites. Um, so in page 31 of your Lake Host training manual, you will see the directions for how to download the field app. Um, and yeah, you can also navigate to the link provided in the Lake Host training manual, and you're going to want to first select Open in Browser. And so I don't expect you to follow along right now. So again, this is all in your training manual. This will be recorded, so you can do it at a later time as well. So once you click Open in Browser on your phone, you're going to want to navigate to Open in the Survey 123 Field app. Uh, So you're going to need to download the Field app to be able to access the survey, of course. The other option to, typing in links and, um, needing to do all of that manually, you can also open the camera on your phone and point it at this QR code in the lower right-hand corner, and a yellow link, at least on an iPhone, will pop up and you click on that and it will automatically take you to the page that you see on this phone. And so we try to make it a little bit easier this year. If you still have the app on your phone from last year, you don't need to do this. It's the same survey. It will give you an option to update the survey, and please do because we've made some changes. Um, and so unless you deleted the survey somehow, then you're good to go for this season. It's on your phone already. So backing up one more time. Once you click on Open in the Survey 123 Field app, it will give you the option of what store on your phone you're going to download it from. So I always click on download at the App Store. And once you click on that, it will give you the option to press install. And yes, you want to do that. So once you press install, you're going to want to navigate back to the website on your internet browser and select Open in the Survey 123 Field app. And then throughout the season, when you open the Survey 123 Field app in this survey, you'll always see this page. For this, you never want to click sign in with ArcGIS Online or manage ArcGIS connections. You always want to continue without signing in. Um, and once you do that, it will take you to the left-hand image here. And you'll click on the New Hampshire Lakes Boater Survey and press collect. And once you have it downloaded, it's a lot easier to access. You only need to do that once during the season, unless you lose your phone or something and you need to re-download it, knock on wood. Um, yeah, so it's fairly straightforward once you have it downloaded on your phone, but we're always here to help if you're trying it out for the first time this season. So once you press collect, it will take you to the survey. And this has basically all of those questions that you see in the paper form as well. So you're going to want to first enter your group name, your name, and the time block. These are things that you can do mostly before a boater even arrives at the launch. If you find that you've pre-filled things out some and the time block has changed, make sure that you update that. This helps to influence when your coordinators staff lake hosts at the ramp. Um, and all of the questions that have that little red star are required. How are we doing with this survey? 123. Okay. So if you find something suspicious, now what do you do? So you always want to ask the boater permission before touching their property. You kind of get this permission when you ask them if you can inspect their watercraft. But if you find something really tangled up, throughout their motor, asking them if you can, remove that or get their help removing it can be a good call. Um, and once you have that suspicious specimen, you're going to want to place it on the laminated photo submission form. Um, I would recommend getting the form a little bit wet since it is laminated. And for species like this one, it will help to fan out all of those little leaflets and help us to ID it here in office. And you can press it down a little bit so it all gets captured in your high quality photo. So once you have taken the photo of the suspicious specimen, which is an option in this survey, entered your time block, all of the questions from the boater have been answered. What you're going to want to do is hit the check mark to submit your survey. And it will give you the option if your device is online versus offline. So if your device is online, it will say, do you want to send it now? Whoops, did you click this by accident? Do you actually need to continue this survey? Or do you want to save it in the outbox to be sent later on? I usually waited until I was connected to Wi-Fi so I didn't eat up all of my cellular data. So, surveys that are saved in the outbox, don't worry about them. They're not going anywhere until you press send on them. So, I would say, trying to send them every few days so that you can stay up to date on it. And so that we here at the office can stay up to date on any photos that are submitted. So it's not, hundreds of surveys all at once being submitted. And then once you're in your outbox, you will see the option in the lower right-hand corner to press send. Um, and yeah, easy peasy. There is the option to change text size in your Field app if you're having any difficulty reading it. I find that when you're in the sun and there's a glare on your phone, the larger text size can really help, unless you're under a 7-person umbrella and you have a ton of shade. So to do this, the first step that you're going to want to take is in that upper right-hand corner under number 1. You're going to click on the hamburger menu and it will bring up 2 options. So settings or about. Go ahead and click on settings. Then it will give you a drop down of all of the settings that you can change. You'll want to do the second one down, which is text. And you have a fairly wide range of size that you can choose from. So whatever works for you. If you want to make it smaller, you can do that too. Okay, and as a kind of recap of our survey 1, 2, 3 form, it's really helpful in showing daily summaries and graphs detailing all of the great data that you're collecting. You can sort and filter data just to view only your group's information. Um, so if someone from your leadership team was kind of asking for an update, how many surveys have we done over this season? That information is more readily available. Uh, you can view photos of suspicious plants and animals, and print reports to save for your records as well. And please don't forget to submit the surveys. It's really important for us to be able to stay up to date on all of the data that's being submitted from across the state. And also during the summer, there are biweekly payrolls for paid lake hosts, ongoing ID of suspicious specimens that are made on samples. And yeah, we're always here in office to assist as we can. If you have any issues or emergencies during the season, always reach out to us, or just to say hi if you've had a really good success during